Right, I will call this regularly scheduled meeting of Bridgewater Town Council to order. Does that startle you? Is scared?
You're pretty good.
Yeah, like, Tanner's been, we're going to have some fun with this. Just randomly throughout the meeting. Call the meeting to order. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the agenda as circulated?
So
Thank
moved.
you, Councilor Vergier, seconded by Councilor Caldwell. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Are there any announcements from members of council? Councilor Vergier.
Thank you. Thank you, Worship. I'd like to just announce the public what Christmas on the La Have has been busy planning, and we know this year it will look a little different with no parade and fireworks, but we're hoping we can brighten up the community with a few things that we've been busy with. So stay tuned. There's a Best Decorated Home contest in the town of Bridgewater. So this is a great opportunity to decorate your home with some lights. And we're fortunate that we have some great prizes from sponsors. Gau's Home Hardware and Furniture are donating, sponsored a $500 store credit. Second place is $250 from Bridgewater Superstore gift card. Third place, $100 South Shore Center gift card as well. So the contest will run up until the week of December 13th, and the winners will be announced around December 21st. So we're hoping to get the winners their gift cards in time for Christmas. We've also we're hopes to have the community tree up this week, along with the wreaths are being put up on King Street. And Candy Cane Lane went up on, I believe, on Friday, so the things are starting to look festive over there. Also on King Street, you'll notice we've thankful for Helping Nature Heal to decorate 8 cement planters along King Street. And I think we're as well, 4-H Community Forest has started their decorating for trees. It happens this week as well. So,
Great.
yeah, stay tuned for more information on the town's Facebook page.
Perfect. Thank you, Councilor Vergier, for your effort and that of your team. Walked down King Street over the weekend with all the lights on and the wreaths up, and it just looks fantastic. So thank you once again. I know you pour your heart into that one. Any other announcements from members of council? Councilor Thorburn.
Royal Canadian Legion Branch 24 again, Your Worship. Firstly, I want to thank all the residents and the people in the community for not coming to the service. It was well organized and social distancing was in effect, and masks were to be seen everywhere. That's the good news. The plane didn't come. There was a technical error and they couldn't fly, but it was booked. We can't control that. The bad news is we're down about $12,000 in revenue that goes mostly to support the veterans community and youth. The good news is that the business and residents around the community supported that, and we raised this year over $8,000 where normally we get close to $2,000. So all in all, we've got $29,000 in the bank. Our expenses are down, but we're pleased with the results. And I just want to take and thank everybody in the community for not coming to the service and for supporting the Poppy Trust Fund for the veterans. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Further announcements from council? I have a small one, which is that the council's aware of this, but members of the public, I've been elected to the board of directors for the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. I'm also now on the Standing Committee for Municipal Infrastructure and Transportation Policy, and I am Vice Chair of the National Standing Committee on Environmental Issues and Sustainable Development. So this is new for me after all these years on municipal council. It's my first time on the FCM Board of Directors. I'm a little overwhelmed with how involving it is. It's Advocacy Week, so last week and this week. So meeting with all the party leaders and having that ability to interact with them, which is something that as a town of our size, we don't generally get the opportunity to do. So being able to represent not only Nova Scotia, but communities of about 8, 9, 10,000 is pretty neat, especially when you're talking to people who actually make policy decisions. So when we talk about things like the Rapid Housing Initiative or transit, we can really highlight what the barriers are for our communities, because a lot of these policies are made with big cities in mind. So especially for those of us around the council table, when you start getting those FCM emails, they always start with big city mayors. That is an actual name of a group, is big city mayors. So they seem to get all the action, and then the small town, we seem to be a little bit forgotten. So I feel really encouraged and empowered to represent communities our size in the province. So a lot of work ahead for the next year, but I'm encouraged. Any other announcements from members of council? Hearing none, we'll move on to delegations. So we're a little early, but our delegation is here. So we have Jason Knickel from LaHave Street Auto Clinic regarding 141 LaHave Street, which is a matter that will be coming before council further on in the agenda. So thank you, Mr. Knickel, for coming, and we're ready to go.
Good to go.
You have 10 minutes.
I don't know if you want me to say here or not, but I have a conflict of issue with that item on the agenda. My son-in-law works there, so do you want me to go to the gallery now or wait till?
You might as well go now.
Okay.
No, thank you, Mr. Garber.
I didn't even think about it 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your transparency.
Mayor Mitchell, fellow councilors and staff, my name is Jason Knickel. I'm here representing LaHave Street Auto Clinic in response to the violations of the development agreement signed almost 3 years ago. I just want to start off by saying, basically, due to our naivety and, we didn't know much about the development agreements at the time we were signing it, and the tactics utilized by the town planner assigned at the time, we kind of went along with things as they were proposed without giving much thought. In hindsight, we would have definitely looked a little further into the implications of being in the LaHave River Development Agreement area and maybe challenged or done things a little differently. The issue at hand is, of course, Section 6B, which is the maximum width of the driveway in the front of the shop. And if we weren't in the LaHave River Development Agreement area, that wouldn't even be an issue. Due to land use bylaws, we're in the industrial zone, there is no maximum width. So that is the biggest issue that we're facing right now. We have done our best to accommodate and meet all the demands of the development agreement, keeping everything looking clean and neat as much as possible. We did do the sidewalk delineation to the best of our ability, which met staff's approval. But I really don't know if there's a possibility to take that main driveway and shrink it in a safe way. It's 52 feet wide right now, and with the existing parking structure and where people park in our parking lot, to take that and shrink it by 22 feet, meaning one lane in, one lane out, could pose a traffic issue. I think a lot of you are familiar with our property. If we shrink that one entrance down, as cars come in and cars are backing out, we could run into the potential of having a collision. I know there's a lot of other things I could say, but at the end of the day, this all boils down to us signing the development agreement and being in the LaHave River Development Agreement area. That is the only issue. I can plead multiple different points and cases and why I think we should kind of turn a blind eye to this or amend the development agreement, but at the end of the day, we did sign it and we are responsible for it. I know that staff has recommended option 6A or option A here, which is to curb it, landscape it, and send us the bill. I don't think that's overly fair, but that's beside the point. It's part of the development agreement. So my plea to you tonight as staff and council is to go with D and accept the continuing violation and require a non-substantive amendment to the existing development agreement. I think that would satisfy what we need as a business to grow and succeed and operate safely at that entrance point. And it would also satisfy staff and council's needs because it will be amended correctly.
Okay.
Right? I mean, I could go on and say, oh, well, this and this and this and this, but at the end of the day, it's a legal document, it's signed. These were the provisions. Had we looked at it more closely, we might have tried to change it 3 years ago. But right now, we just have to deal with the case in point. We're in the industrial zone, but we're in the LaHave River Development Agreement area. So those are crossing over. Are we really in the LaHave River Development Agreement area? Yes, but we're far enough outside of town that I don't think it really has the same implications as the downtown core. So at this point, I would just like to ask staff and council to consider option D and look at doing accepting the continuing violation and taking the next steps to remedy the existing development agreement.
Are you able to take any questions from members
I
of
can take any
council?
questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Does any members of council have any questions from Mr. Knickel? Deputy Mayor?
Jason, you made a comment about the issue of potential traffic issues and so on, or collisions, or whatever the case may be. I'm not sure, I'm not clear I follow.
Well, I wish I would have had the ability to do some proper audio, video, and actually get a picture.
Okay.
But if you're familiar with the shop, we have the one main entrance. So if I'm standing in front of the two bays, I'm looking out, I have the mailbox here, and I have the curb to the right.
Yeah.
We have 52 feet right there. On the right-hand side is all the cars are parked there.
Yeah.
So if we curb over from the mailbox, as people pull in, pull out, they're going to be hitting the cars parked there. Or as my techs bring them in, they back them out to bring them in. It could create traffic congestion in that area there. If we move from the existing curb over towards the mailbox, we'll have to talk to Canada Post about moving the mailbox because of the way they pull in as well, right? And we also have larger trucks that come in with bulk oil deliveries and things like that. They're going to have to back right in. That's going to basically eliminate any possibility for any other vehicles to come in.
Okay.
Other questions from members of council? So after we approve the minutes, this is going to come back, and we're going to have this as an item to discuss. And we do have staff here that can answer some questions, but just while Mr. Knickel's at the podium, I just wanted to see if anyone had any more questions. Going once, going twice. Right.
Sure.
Thank you.
Simple and sweet. Thank you.
So before we move to planning items, we have, so Councilor Dorman, I don't know if you want to come back, we'll approve the minutes, and then you can go back. You want to go back? You'll get your steps in today. Although I know that's no trouble for you, you probably walk the dog a few miles a day.
Over 20,000 steps in today so far.
Wow, I feel lazy. So I walked up and down the stairs of Town Hall quite a bit today. So we have the minutes of November 9th, regular council meeting before it. Any errors or omissions? Anything there? Hearing none, motion to approve the minutes. Deputy Mayor Tanner, seconded by Councilor Thorburn. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Now we will move to development agreement violation for 141 LaHave Street. And thank you, Councilor Thorburn. We have our development officer, Mr. Brown, is here. Did you want to just give us an overview first? That'd be perfect. Thank you.
Sure, if you like. Good evening. Yeah, so as Jason mentioned, in 2017, a development agreement process was initiated to enable 1,000 square foot expansion to the existing LaHave Street Auto Clinic at 141 LaHave Street. The development agreement with council was necessitated by the requirements of the LaHave River Development Agreement area. That's the reason we went through the development agreement process. The agreement was negotiated, we believe, in good faith and agreed to by the property owner and council. Provisions of the development agreement include, but are not limited to, those related to the building footprint, site access, servicing, and parking. The single outstanding item yet to be completed and considered in violation is the 30-foot maximum width requirement for any point of access, in accordance with section 6B of the development agreement. While the narrowing of the one driveway opening may cause on-site parking reconfiguration, staff are recommending that council uphold the terms of the development agreement with LaHave Auto, and therefore direct staff to undertake the work to reduce the driveway opening from 52 feet to 30 feet at the expense of the property owner at an estimated cost of $2,500. Other options for council include authorizing staff to make application to the Supreme Court of Nova Scotia for an order to remedy that would include completion of the work to reduce the driveway opening by the property owner or the town at the expense of the property owner, or terminating the DA and revoking permits, thereby making the addition illegal, and authorizing staff to make application to the Supreme Court of Nova Scotia for an order that would include removal of the structure, the expansion, accepting the continuing violation, directing staff to initiate a non-substantive amendment to the DA that could take out the maximum driveway width requirement, which is essentially a deferral of the item until such time as the amendments are brought back to council at a future regular council meeting. And yes, I'll take any questions.
Perfect, thank you. Questions from councilors? Councilor McDonald.
What is the reason for the maximum 30-foot width?
Maximum 30-foot width is a land use bylaw requirement around town for all zones excepting the industrial M1 zone, which is the subject zone for LaHave Auto. When going through a development agreement process, we use the land use bylaw as a guideline. And in this case, staff decided to introduce the provision for the 30-foot. It's there because it's deemed to be more safe for pedestrians primarily. So when you're walking along LaHave Street in this circumstance, more delineation between the sidewalk and the parking lot is only going to create a safer, more comfortable environment for pedestrians. Also, just having a very delineated opening, in and out. The minimum width being 20, the maximum width being 30 in all other zones. It just directs traffic so they're not entering and exiting the property at various locations.
Questions, Deputy Mayor?
Nick, that cut wasn't always there? The cut in the curb? Like, when was that done?
I think it was 2004.
Okay.
2001.
When?
Thank you. The town undertook some improvements at that time to LaHave Street. So I'm not aware of what the situation was prior to that, but when it's same. So the town put it back the way it was when we upgraded the streets in 2001.
Okay.
I'm honestly struggling with this one for a couple of reasons. First is if I look at the photos, the business next door, their driveway, the entrance is even wider.
Yes.
And if they make no improvements, that is perfectly fine. That we put this entrance back the way it was, which is currently what we've said is not acceptable, it's a struggle for me that I'm trying to formulate my thoughts. So it's not illegal except the LaHave River zone makes it illegal. But if we remove that and they're just in that M1 zone, which they are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then it conforms. So it's just that overlay of being in that specific location with a driveway cutout that has been there for 19 years plus whatever it was there before. I'm struggling with imposing the cost of making changes to something that was acceptable before to a business. So I like right now where my head is at is to go with D, because I don't see enough of a justification. Like, I know this is what we say our policy is, in the LaHave River zone it's got to be 30 feet.
Yep.
But I'm struggling with why it has to be that when it never was before, and if they made no changes it was fine.
And just to confirm, the LaHave River Development Agreement doesn't require the 30-foot maximum width. It requires the development agreement process for any addition to an existing structure over 538 square feet. So the 1,000 square foot addition triggered the development agreement process, and at that time, staff and the property owner, it's a negotiation. The development agreement is negotiated, and provisions are included, and for this development agreement, it was decided to include that provision, the 30-foot maximum width, and then bring that forward to council. So it's not a requirement of the LaHave River Development Agreement that be there. It was decided by staff to include it here.
Okay. Gives me a bit better understanding. Still doesn't help, but that's better. Councilor Fugere.
Just for clarification, so it was decided by staff when it was negotiated with the property owner prior to being signed, is that?
Yeah, so how it works is that, there are policies in the municipal planning strategy that help direct the provisions of the development agreement, but also staff use the land use bylaw and best practice to again, develop that development agreement. So what happens is staff drafts the template, essentially
Mhm.
the agreement, property owner has the ability to request changes to that draft. Legal counsel looks it over, and it's brought to council. So it's a negotiation. That's the idea, and then a contract with council. But yeah, it's the negotiation is, the idea is for that to be in good faith.
Mhm.
So all parties should have been aware of what they were signing.
Other questions or?
Just, the $500 estimate on the landscaping, Nick, I assume is to put more grass?
Yeah,
Just to bring it up
probably
to
a 3-foot landscape strip, I think it
Yeah,
was.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
3 or 4 foot. Similar to what's there,
Yeah.
adjacent to
Just continue
some of
on.
the other part of the property.
So council has a couple of options before them. You can go with staff recommendation. I mean, there's A, B, C, and D. I know that we have to be presented all these options. I think maybe a couple are a little extreme, but I understand. Mr. Brown is only putting in front of us what he has to put in front of us, so I appreciate that. The other is, if we were to accept the continuing violation, this would be a non-substantive agreement. We would ask that this be deferred for staff to prepare the amendments, and then that would come back to
Yeah.
council, and then we would deal with it. So that's only if you want to follow D. Am I correct in that?
That's right. If you can't just allow the violation to continue, you should clean up the development agreement by amending it. And you probably want to see the wording before you agree to that.
Yeah.
And it does require the $700 application fee?
For non-substantive, probably not, because there's no advertising, right?
It's a $600.
It's
6?
600?
Okay, thought it said 7. Oh.
Or maybe
I
it's not.
apologize if it did.
No, that's not.
Yeah. What's the wish of council? And just if you refresh your e-scribe, you'll see that there's a couple of options there for motions. The other is if we need more time, if council needs more time, then I'll accept a motion to defer this for either further information or discussion. Councillor Caldwell?
I would probably suggest that we go with option D. I am on the fence about this. It's a tough one, but I think since it would require a substantive amendment, it could have been negotiated away in the first place. And I mean, I struggle with the fact that it's industrial use, industrial zone. It seems reasonable to allow a little extra driveway space. I certainly understand the staff recommendation. I am on the fence about this, but I'd support a motion of
Right.
D.
Would you put that motion on the floor then, please, and we can debate that one?
Yes. I would move that council accept the continuing violation and require a non-substantive amendment to the development agreement. I'm sorry, I don't see the new.
Yeah, so it should be defer a decision regarding the development agreement violation. Do you see that if you refresh? Should be
Yeah,
two motions there, that should be the second one.
Yeah.
I move that council for the town of Bridgewater defer decision regarding a development agreement violation at 141 LaHave Street until staff provide a report outlining options for a non-substantive agreement at a future meeting with council.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Conklin, further discussion on that? No? Almost. This is not easy. I do not envy, Nick, your position with having to balance all this. So I do want to say I always feel obligated when we're going against staff's recommendation to say I feel your pain, and I'm proud of our staff for doing their job. I mean, yeah, we don't make it easy. Deputy Mayor Tanner.
Can I ask another question?
Of course, yes.
So Nick, can you give us an idea of what options might look like?
What the options before you?
Even though when it comes back,
Yeah.
what they might look like? Yes.
As far as the non-substantive amendment.
Yeah.
I would suggest that it looks like section 6B is struck out and is no longer there.
Oh, okay.
I think it's as simple as that.
Okay,
There
all right.
may be something in its place, but if it's not going to be a reduction in the width of that driveway, it may as well not be there.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
And does the traffic authority also get involved in this one?
Yeah,
You need to
we would
talk to them, okay.
yes, get comment from the
Okay,
traffic authority.
all right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Further questions? Are you ready for the question?
Hey, Jim.
Oh, sorry.
That's
Yes,
fine.
Councilor Dahl.
If something, because it's kind of like a little pocket of industrial properties,
Mm.
if something happened to change the use of one of those properties and now the kind of active transportation element became more important, is there the opportunity to make changes at that point, or is this kind of the point and there's no going back?
I wouldn't say there's no going back. If the use changes, then the industrial zoning doesn't require that maximum 30-foot width. But going forward, if those uses change, there may be a situation where the zoning changes.
Right.
Because, as you said, it's just a little pocket of industrial, whereas primarily the industrial is in the business pattern. But that is long-term and very uncertain whether that would ever happen. But it would be a zoning change and then a change of use with a redevelopment of the property, and at that time it would be required to go to 30-foot maximum, a 30-foot maximum. But until then, with the current zoning, there would be nothing for the town. There would be no trigger for a reduction to that width. It would only be through this development agreement.
Further questions? Ready for the question? Question been called. All those in favor? Those opposed? So we'll wait for staff to come back with the non-substantive changes, and council will discuss it again. Thank you. And we'll welcome Councilor Thorburn back. So our next item is application for NPS and land use bylaw text amendments and public participation meeting notice for 123 Empire Street. And then people are probably wondering, 123 Empire Street? What is 123 Empire Street? So, that's the arena,
That's the former
the former arena.
arena, that's right.
Yeah.
I can speak to it.
Yes, perfect.
Okay. This is an introduction to an internal application to amend the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw to allow 2 new permitted developments in the recreation zone, specifically targeted at the former Bridgewater Memorial Arena. The 2 proposed uses are parks facilities and transit facilities. If approved by council, these uses would be listed as permitted developments in each of the 8 properties zoned recreation. The next step is for staff to conduct public engagement via public participation meeting. That meeting has been scheduled for December 9th, in person here in council chambers. Letters to adjacent property owners and an ad in the breaker will follow, including further instruction on meeting registration and format based on public protocol at that time. And so I just will make a note that the information council received, the memo indicated December 2nd. It will be in fact December 9th.
Okay. Questions for Mr. Brown while he is here? So this is just, we're just giving notice to the public, so December 9th, that will be advertised. And, yeah, so there's no motion required. We're just giving notice. Councillor Thornton, you have a question?
Yeah, Nick, I think I got a letter on that for the Royal Canadian Legion too. I don't see it on here, but I did get a letter for that change.
Yeah.
Well, I got a letter.
Okay.
I can show you. Anyway,
Okay, good. That would be the idea. Everyone within 100 feet, every property within 100 feet of one of the properties zone recreation, of any of them, will receive a letter with instructions as far as the public participation meeting is concerned.
Okay, perfect. So, public can look for that advertising. Thank you very much. If there's no other questions, we'll move on. Okay, perfect. Down to reports and recommendation. 9.1 is a report basically from the municipal election that we had. Very interesting read. I know there were some questions. Voter turnout, when you read the report in Bridgewater, is always a challenge. I don't know why. I've had people blame council. I don't know why council would be blamed for the public not voting in a very well publicized and advertised election. I don't know if it's just voters are disenfranchised with politics in general. What I found very interesting was even the 2004 municipal election that had the Sunday shopping plebiscite, which was a massive issue in Nova Scotia, had 44% voter turnout. So you have at the time, one of the most polarizing topics of the day, and we can only get 44% of people to turn out. You've got elections with a mayor and without, and it just, I know that the ones where there was no mayoral election, it's down. That happens across the province if they don't have that. And so I'm struggling to figure out why such low voter turnout when it took 2 minutes? 2 minutes to vote? Vote by phone, vote by internet. You could come into town hall and vote. So it's going to be a very interesting discussion as we motor through these next 4 years and interact with the public post-COVID and start talking to more and more people who didn't vote to find out why. I'd be very curious. I don't know if the CAO had anything to add to that report?
No.
No? It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, just for information and to give you kind of the stats behind it.
And a huge thank you to Amanda, who she's our returning officer. She does an amazing job every election for that. She also ran for the school board,
CSAP.
the CSAP position as well. So a lot of work goes into that. So one person just does all that. I know she was on the phone constantly with returning officers from around the South Shore. They turned to her for advice. So it's a thankless job. So I'm on behalf of everyone in the town saying thank you to Amanda for that. So if there's any questions, you can direct those through the CAO, who is also our deputy returning officer, I believe, right? So
Luckily, Amanda was here.
yeah, she gets all the glory. So that's there for your information. 9.2 is the Energized Bridgewater Resource Plan. That's there.
Yeah, so we're missing someone's MIA, so I will briefly go over this with council. It's really for information, and it's to give you a picture of what's changed in the resource plan. So if you remember when we were awarded the Smart Cities grant of $5 million, and we've also applied for some COA funding of $950,000, and there's been some other funding in there. We only had a few positions that we initially started out with. So we had the sustainability planner, which was AKA Leon, and a junior planner who was in that role. And our director of community development provided some support. And as we got that funding, council was advised that the funds were to develop a program that we could then tackle energy poverty and reduce energy consumption at the same time. And that, it's a big project, and we would require resources to do that. So over the last bit of time, council has seen us bring in an energy finance and development coordinator, which was a 2-year term position, and that was to develop energy financing systems and options for that. We just completed that contract, so that's ended. And we brought in an on-site energy manager, and we just dealt with that contract not too long ago with Efficiency Nova Scotia, where they fund a part of that position, and that was to look at opportunities within the program itself to support home ownership as in terms of looking at alternate energy systems, as well as look at our own facilities. In addition to that, last year actually, I think it was in February of 2020, we brought on a project manager, identifying that this was a big project and not something that could be managed by the director of planning, who had their own department to manage. So we brought in Colleen. And we also brought in an IT system integration specialist, because that part of the program is IT. It was a smart cities program, so it's how can you use information technology to meet your objectives. So we're looking at an energy management system or systems, and that would involve looking at the IT that would be required to support that, the technology. So we brought him in March of 2020. And since then, we also had revised the plan to identify to council that we had a budget allocated for a communication specialist to use. We were initially thinking that we would contract that out with consultants. Then we determined that it would actually be more cost effective to hire that resource, who can become more fully engaged in the program and take, I guess, in terms of being engaged, also have enthusiasm for the program the same way staff do, as opposed to being external to it. You would be more embedded to it. Yes. So we brought that position on, and that's a 2-year term position, and we'll reevaluate that. So she came in. She just started actually last week, I believe. Last Thursday was her first day. So this report is also advising that we are looking at a project administrator. So that's someone who does more of the administrative function to support the core team. There's a lot of procurement that we're doing at this point in time that needs to be tracked and managed. It's complex. It's not routine procurement. For that reason, the staff are finding that it's taking more administrative time than we perhaps want those resources to be spending on that. So this person would be brought in for the term of the project, fully funded by the grant funds that we have to provide that support to the program. We've also received pre-approval for a $15,000 grant to offset that, and that's through the Career Launcher Clean Tech Internship Program. If we can find a candidate that meets the criteria, we'll be able to get that $15,000 grant to help offset that as well. In addition to that, you'll see that we'll be recruiting later for a technical navigator and also an investment navigator, and those would be term positions as well. And when staff, through our orientation, showed you kind of the chart and how those work, those positions were key to helping navigate residents through the technical piece and options, as well as the financing options available as well. There's a lovely diagram that shows how that all plays out in terms of resources there. And as I say, it's really here at this point to provide council with an update as to the resource plan. It's fully within budget and funded by the grants that we received. It's just a program that's growing as we develop it and determine the resources required to support it. That initially at the beginning, some of these weren't foreseen.
Perfect. Questions? CAO, Councillor Colwell.
The diagram's a little head spinning.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, is this fully funded by money from the Smart Cities Challenge and other external sources?
Yeah.
We don't pay.
There is no tax revenue being used to fund this.
I love that.
We do
type of
provide some
program.
in kind. So for the ECOA piece, in the Smart Cities piece, we had to give some in kind. So So that's, some of that's Jessica's time, some of that's my time, Mackenzie's time. And if we look at a planning technician, maybe some of the GIS component time put into that as well. So it's existing resources that we're allocating.
Other questions? Councillor Thorburn?
Yeah, Tammy, I just added the numbers up, and it looks like $6,165,000 to date.
In grants,
And
yeah.
COLA's $950,000 was a big investment.
Yes.
Is there any opportunity, any chance to get any more money either from a COLA or the Federation of Canadian Municipalities at some point in time? Or
Well,
just dragging over
yeah.
4 or 5 years?
We're looking at all funding sources, so our grant coordinator is involved with this team. She's meeting with them all the time to figure out what funding opportunities may be out there to add to this. The more funding we have, the more we can devote to the program, right?
Yeah.
That we
No
roll
problem.
out. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So this will just be something that is ongoing for us. This is a big project for the town, so there'll be lots of milestones and other updates as we continue. Moving on, I see we have our police chief here, virtually. So we have tender 20-08 BPS, supply and delivery of one 2020 or newer black police spec vehicle. And so, I don't know, Chief Feener, if you were going to just go over this with us, or we can dive right in.
Sure. So as a result of COVID-19, our normal process for procurement for a replacement vehicle, which usually starts in the spring, was postponed as there's no availability. So we did vote for tender, which closed in November. We did receive one tender, which is currently before council in the report, and only one proposal as a result of the tender. As council can see, the price is $43,449.55, including the town's portion of the HST. We have recommended purchasing or replacing the police vehicle this year, even though we will come over budget by a few $1,000s as a result of the additional cost for purchasing. As council is aware, we used to leap on to the provincial tender, which changed the process a couple of years ago, and now we do our own tender process.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions to the chief before we dive right in? Councillor Thorburn?
Yes, Scotty, I see the price on that originally was $48,000, and we're committed at 43 and change. There's still a balance of $4,650 there, and you're saying it's going to go over budget. So how much more than that $4,600 is required for upgrade to that car?
So it depends. So we repurpose most of our emergency equipment within the vehicles because we are rotating from a car to an SUV. We will be required to replace a couple of new screens in the rear seat. So I'm going to guess it's probably going to be $5,000 to $8,000 in addition to the approval for capital budget on top of the pre-approved capital amount.
So $8,000 over budget.
So it's $56,000 instead of $48,000. Would that be correct? Which is
Yes.
a fair amount of money.
It's going to be. That's why I'm trying to advise council that there's no way we can stay within budget. I know deckling alone is $1,500 to $1,700, depending on the amount of decals that they actually put on, and then it's the cost of stripping the old one and repurposing the emergency equipment for the new one and outfitting it.
I have a question. We generally keep these vehicles 3 years, Chief, so I'm curious as to why we're purchasing a 72-month warranty for vehicles that we keep 36 months.
Yep, no, we're not purchasing the extended warranty. We're just basically on the tender certificate. It's the $42,900 plus the town's portion of the HST.
Okay, sorry, my fault, I missed that. Thought we were taking a provisional item. Okay. Other questions from the chief?
And as council can see, there is an extended wait time, even if we are able to purchase a vehicle. With the current situation, worldwide availability is definitely a concern.
And so I know that when we've done this before, switched to SUVs, I've raised this for the public's information. The reason we're going from cars to SUVs is there are no more police cars anymore. So Ford had the Taurus Interceptor police car. They don't make police cars anymore. I think the Chargers are available, but you have to buy the big, I don't know why I keep looking back as if you're behind me. You have to buy the big V8, which is not our practice. So you're left with an Explorer or a Durango, I think, as the only two, or an F-150, which some police departments are buying.
Yeah,
So,
you are correct, Your Worship. They are the only two 6-cylinder vehicles. We could go to a GMC Yukon, but once again, you're into a V8, which is not necessary for around town.
so I know the public is always, why are you buying SUVs? Because it's ironically the cheapest option. I gotta tell you, I'm struggling with this one. Councilor Caldwell.
How would deferring this purchase for a year impact the police service?
So that is one option. The availability, usually our marked cars are on a 3-year rotation, so we keep them for 3 years. So that means next year we'd be looking for purchasing 2 vehicles. Then again, with the availability of COVID continues to increase, the plants may shut down again. That's what happened this year. They were shut down in the States all over the summer. So, and availability is continuing. I know 2 other municipal tenders closed prior to us throughout the province.
Councilor Frazier.
Yeah.
So sorry.
No, I'm just asking, and it's probably a question that we can't answer at this point, but with the probability of deferring, there is a good possibility that the price could even go up further. If the plant shut down and the demand is there, then we risk the price possibly being higher.
I think
Yeah,
there's always a
that's
risk.
correct. So I can currently tell you that the current vehicle has 142,000 kilometers on it, or 6,400 operating hours. In comparison, normal vehicle, I just looked at mine, has 63,000 kilometers on it and only 1,400 hours. So usually the hours are double. It's the run hours that give us not so much the amount of kilometers driven. But it is an option for council, and the cars are working well. There will be an increased maintenance cost to get us through to bridge that gap, though, in the operation budget.
Deputy Mayor, did you have a
I was just wondering if we have any information.
See, it's hard, right? He's not behind you.
But he is, isn't he? Just wondering if we have any information, given that demand is so high for these, if it also increases the trade-in value or the resale value of the 2017.
So normally ours just go back to the town for surplus, and they're in a seal tender, which we may be able to put a higher price on it, what we're looking for. Normally we receive $2,500 to $3,500 depending on the value for these vehicles. They are driven and run for a significant amount of time.
Just further to the Deputy Mayor's question, Chief, do any of the rules, the new rules around taking police cars out of service due to the incident in May, does that change how we deal with this police car in terms of either cost or where it actually goes?
No, so you're correct, Your Worship. There are new legislation rules coming into play from the provincial government. They have been asking questions of the Nova Scotia chiefs, as well as I think the municipality in correspondence. For us, it'll be like normal. Ours are completely stripped as per our current policy, and just go with surplus. So all the emergency equipment and identification markers are removed. And I believe that will still be the practice. We have to identify where we are having our vehicles outfitted, where we purchase all the equipment from, and provide that ahead of time.
Top one. Further questions?
Do you want a motion?
Yes, please. Yeah.
I would move that Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater endorse the recommendation of staff and award tender 20-08 Bridgewater Police Station supply and delivery of one 2020 or newer black police spec vehicle to Saunders Motors Incorporated for the purchase of a 2020 Dodge Durango at a cost of $42,902 plus HST, $43,349.55 net HST.
Thank you. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Tanner. Further discussion?
What's your choice?
I struggle with this one. I'm going to just put it out there. I'm not going to be supporting the motion. This is 20% over budget, and while I know we need a police car, I also know that places like HRM and other large forces will be going again to tender. I'm assuming in the spring, which is traditionally when they go to tender, and there's another opportunity for us to jump on the provincial tender or maybe partner with another municipality. I think there's cost savings when you start buying a dozen cars or 24 cars or whatever is being purchased around the province, and so if we can do some work together. I know that COVID has thrown a wrench into this, but I also know that at some point this pandemic ends, production ramps back up, and as far as it seems away, we will return to a normal way of life where they're just pumping out cars like crazy. 20% over budget is just, it's a bit of a struggle for me. So as much as if you'd said the car was really severely in terrible shape and we weren't going to get through the year, then I would probably, support the motion. But to me, it doesn't seem like an emergency. And if we were paving a road and it was 20% over budget, we would probably say no to the tender. So I'm kind of holding the line on that one for me. Councillor McDonald, then Councillor Thorburn.
Do you have any idea of what the increased maintenance costs will be? I'm looking over there too. Increased maintenance costs will be over the next year? An estimate?
Not really. So we only budget a portion of the year because the cars are usually replaced, so actually that car's already over budget. But then again, we also budget for the new vehicle, so it kind of balances. It depends upon, anything and everything. It's a mechanical piece of equipment. As long as we have no breakages, it's probably, we add another couple of $1,000s to the operating budget next year to get us through.
Councillor Thorburn, and then Councillor Bergier.
Yes, Scotty, the budget was 48, so the vehicle itself come in under budget. It's the other equipment and changes and alterations we have to make that vehicle suitable. So if we defer this tonight and buy a vehicle next year, we're still going to have the additional cost to put in the screens and the stuff that's necessary to make it a police vehicle. Is that correct?
That is correct. Once we went back to tendering, like as I had said earlier, when we were on the provincial tender, we were purchasing for approximately $10,000 less, which offset the cost of outfitting and reinstalling all the equipment in our vehicle. Once we went out to tender, this would be the first time for a marked vehicle we actually came in over budget. And it is a result of the increased initial cost that we weren't able to encompass. So yes, on a go-forward basis, we will be increasing our capital purchases, our amounts.
Councillor Bergier.
Just a question with regards to surplus. So if a car is sold on surplus, does that dollars actually, surplus dollars come back to that budget of the vehicle that we originally purchased, or does that go in a different budget line?
My understanding, it goes into the town revenue coffers.
Okay.
The bulk line. Not specifically to police.
Okay.
Any other questions? No. Motion's been made and seconded.
Question.
Question been called. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is defeated. You're going to be driving around in the 2017 for a little bit longer there, Chief.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, it's frustrating. I don't remember the last time we didn't go ahead, but that's a big pill to swallow, $10,000. I'm hopeful that we can regroup and maybe partner with some other municipalities as they purchase, because they're all going to be facing the same thing, right? If you're Amherst and going out for one police car, then you're getting a $53,000 bill at the end of that, so. I said that I can't remember the last time, but I can remember the last time. That it wasn't that long ago, actually a few years ago, that we said no, and then we bought two the next year, I think, so it does happen. Good discussion, good questions, thank you, everyone. Next item is the monthly permit applications report. There for your perusal, and if you have any questions, you can speak to staff about it. For public information, I thought this was fascinating. Every month since the pandemic started, I kind of open these with a little bit of dread of, is it all going to be zeros? Are we going to see building permits down? And then you open this and you see that year to date, we're way ahead of where we were last year. I did an interview today with the breaker asking, like, where are all these units? And it's obvious when you look at the report that it is in apartments, multi-unit, multi-story buildings. And so this is a huge, during these troubled times, this is a huge report for us to see that things are continuing to move along and continue to grow. I don't know if anyone has any questions. Councillor Thorpe?
Yeah, I agree with you, but there's a lot of sad news there. We've got an increase of $9,354 in those apartments, and there's no affordable housing there. I was out talking to a lady the other day. They have to move out. They can't move out because there's no place to go that's affordable. And although this is great for the town, you have so many residents that are looking for a place to put proper shelter in place that can't afford these prices. They're not affordable housing. They're housing.
So
they're certainly not affordable to the majority of our residents.
30 of those 103 units should be affordable off of Victoria Road.
Housing?
Yeah. So there are some. It seems to be taking a long time.
Yeah.
And Deputy Mayor Tanner and I had a discussion with the developer last week about some of the barriers that are in place for affordable units. There's not one, there's many. We clearly have to have a discussion with the province with some of the hurdles that developers feel that they can't jump over in terms of what's preventing them from developing units. The money's there, it's just there's some things in the way. But you're right, there's not enough. But of the 103, is 32, 34?
Yeah.
Don't know the exact number.
The Victoria Road units that are affordable, is it 34 units? Or 30 units?
30 were planned.
30, okay. So it's something, but like you said, Councillor,
it all helps.
It's not enough, yeah. So that's there. If you have any questions of staff, through the CAO, if you don't mind, please. Our next item is donations to the South Shore Fieldhouse Society, and just for the benefit of Councillor Conklin and Councillor Caldwell, we are not making a donation to the Fieldhouse. And I do say this every time. Way back when Fieldhouse was created, they needed a mechanism to receive donations on their behalf. The town is that kind of conduit, so if you wanted to make a donation to the South Shore Fieldhouse Society and a tax receipt, you would make that to the town of Bridgewater. We would earmark it for the Fieldhouse. We collect a certain amount and then we just pass that on. So I do want to make that clear to the public. We're not, because sometimes this can happen multiple times a year and the public says, why do you keep making donations to the Fieldhouse? We are not. In this case, it is just a flow through. So I am looking for a motion to put something. Thank you.
Member of the Council for the Town of Bridgewater approve a grant in the amount of $900 to the South Shore Fieldhouse Society for the multi-use facility on Glen Ellen Drive as outlined in document 20-192.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Frazier. Any discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 9.6, phone system. I'll turn it over to the CAO for this one.
And Mr. Muse is here as well on our screen, well, actually that way, but on the screen behind you, to also answer any technical questions you may have. So the town has a short telephone system. It's over 10 years old. It's supported by a server and a software platform. The town is It's been identified by IT staff with the Joint Services Board that the phone system is going to require some significant attention to address some vulnerabilities in the system and to ensure its continued function. It was more recently brought up at a Joint Services Board about the vulnerabilities of our phone system because of its age and the need for some, as I say, some attention. So the server is beyond its useful life, and there's some concern about its ability to continue living. So it has to be replaced. Our operating platform is an older version, 14.2. It's no longer supported, so we have to upgrade that, and that's $5,000. And as handsets break, we have to buy new ones. Or if they fail, we have to buy new ones. So we're always doing that, but there's a recapitalization of that, and they're older as well, so they're going to start failing at some point in time. When we shut down in March or April, we encountered some further problems with our phone system. So we have what we call, I don't know if the term's right, but soft clients, and basically it's remote access. So we can have so many people through the program on their laptops use it just like the phone. But we only have so many available spots for that. And we, like 21 I believe it is, and we maxed that out, and some staff the phone system wasn't reliable. They weren't able to get on. They had, things went to voicemail. We had challenges even changing the messages on the phone without having programming support to do it. So there's definitely some issues with it, and when we went remotely, it was a limitation. In addition, if you wanted to arrange a conference call, you couldn't do that remotely either. You had to do it from a phone set physically located within the town hall. So if I wanted to do a phone conference while the office was shut down, outside of Teams, but using phone, I'd have to come here to do that. So there are some limitations with that. So we've been, and this isn't new to council overall. It was identified in our town's technology plan that we should be looking at our phone system. The primary motivator initially was to save money, because other municipalities, I've experienced it elsewhere, that changing your phone system, you actually saved money based on the deals they gave you. In this instance, it's not actually going to save you a lot of money to switch your phone system, but it's going to give you that capacity and address those vulnerabilities that we've identified more recently. So we've been working with IT staff with the Joint Services Board to look at some possible solutions. They've worked with other, the District of Lunenburg, District of Shelburne, some of the LCLC, the Recycling Center at Why Not Settlement, and their own offices, and they've transitioned to an Eastlink phone service. And that is a cloud-based service, and they manage and maintain all the required infrastructure, so we're not updating servers or software platforms and those types of things. It's all being managed through our contract. It would give us a number of soft clients we need in order to go remotely and address those vulnerabilities. There's 24/7 support, and the Joint Services Board is maintaining the same infrastructure for all of its clients, as opposed to having several different phone systems and the technology that goes along with that. So there'd be efficiencies in that as well. And the cost of the various service providers, it's only varies slightly, and the impact would be small if you factor in the fact that they'd be maintaining two different systems and all that. As I say, the benefits, it supports one technology. You remove your server and software maintenance requirements. It's cloud-based. We can have 101 soft phones or UC clients, and that would support remote working with COVID-19. As I say, a limitation we had before. We could actually look at reducing the number of desk phones you have, because with this system, you have a variety of options for using the phone. You can have an app on your phone, cell phone, that would then function just like your desk phone. You can use your laptop, or you can use a desk phone. So there's multiple choices, and so some may just eliminate the desk phone altogether, which you don't have to buy that handset if you already have your cell phone, or you can use your laptop. And Eastlink does the maintenance, which saves on our IT cost as well. So a financial analysis was completed by David, and as I indicated to you, it's just a slight savings by moving to this phone system, but it addresses those issues that we presently have with our system. So even if we upgrade our server and software, we still have limitations. The anticipated cost to implement the system is $30,000. Now that's an allowance of $20,000 for headsets or handsets. That should say handsets, not headsets. And that's assuming that everyone gets a desk phone. That won't happen. I suspect there'll be some people that will not have a desk phone anymore and just use their laptop or use their cell phone if they have one issued by the town. And but it does also provide an allowance for IT support and implementation as we transition to the new phone system, because it's not just flicking a switch. There's a lot of work involved in doing this, and that will mean that our bill to the Joint Services Board will increase because it's on an hourly basis. So we'd have to have funds to address that. This is an unbudgeted item, and if council wished to proceed, there's a couple options for us. Eastlink has indicated that to minimize the budget impacts, we could lease the handsets for a few months to get to the new fiscal year, and then buy it out, and that amount that we paid would be subtracted from the purchase price. Or we could fund this through grants received, and we did receive approximately $600,000 in COVID restart funding. Now the province gave us the money and haven't told us how it can be spent yet, so it's kind of there, but the name of the fund is COVID-19 Restart Funding, so one can assume it's related to COVID-19 expenses that we've incurred, such as building modifications and phone systems.
Police cars?
What's that?
Police cars?
Well, that'd be a stretch, but we could try. So we're going to assume at this point that that's able to be used for that. This would be a alternative procurement purchase. So we wouldn't be going, if this recommendation were accepted, we wouldn't be going to market and soliciting proposals to provide a phone system for the town. We would be going to Eastlink, and your policy does allow that under certain circumstances. So this would be compatibility with existing technology and the efficiencies that come with that, instead of for the Joint Services Board, as opposed to having two different types of phone systems. We'd be having one and getting that efficiencies from that. So council does have some options with this. You can just say, nope, stay the course on your Shortel. We will have to upgrade the server and the software, and there's some programming costs that we will need to incur. And there will be some limitations as we encountered back in March or April if we have to close again. You can direct that we issue an RFP and go to market and see what phone companies bid. You can defer for further information if you feel you don't have enough, or you can accept the recommendation and direct that we transition from our existing phone system to the Eastlink phone service based on the pricing that we were given. And as I indicated, David Muse is here virtually to answer any technical questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions from council? Councilor Thorburn?
Just one, Tammy. I know as fire chief, we had to do this, and it was called sole source provider. We bought some stuff that the next time we needed hose to be compatible, we had to buy the same type of hose, and sometimes it was only one supplier, depending on what you're doing. And this is where this would fall, I would assume. We're already set up with Eastlink, so if we want to be compatible with the other locations, then we would go with that.
And that's the recommendation that David has
Yeah.
in terms of the compatibility
Sure.
with the other units and other phone systems that they support.
Yeah, I support that.
Councilor Colwell?
Excuse me. So the headsets are the major cost involved.
Hands, yeah.
Yeah, the headsets. Handsets.
It was a typo, I know.
But it seems we won't need the amount that is recommended. So couldn't we determine how many we need and then budget for that amount?
You could. It's going to delay it a bit, but what I can assure you is if we don't need the 20,000, we won't spend the 20,000, right? So it's just an allowance for that. It's a long list that we have to go through and determine. I think I already sent the list around once, and maybe 20, 25 came off that. But again, we want to make sure staff have the proper tools to do their job. So if we don't issue them a cell phone, it's either a laptop or a desk phone, and that's the exercise we have to go through. I solicited those who had a cell phone and asked them if they would be prepared to eliminate the desk phone. Some were, because they do conference calling and that type of thing, and preferred the handset to do that.
So $30,000 would be the worst case.
The $20,000 for the handsets would be the worst case, yeah.
So generally, we'd have a motion that might say to a cost of no more than, it's not written here, but it's implied. So if it does come below that, then we're good.
Yeah, we're not going to buy the handsets if we don't need them. So it's essentially an allowance, and $20,000 for handsets, and then the rest would be $10,000 for implementation. If you would rather know the exact number of handsets, so that it's, down to the exact amount, then we'd have to defer and come back. And my concern is a shutdown and the timing to get this put in place. I'm not sure if we'll even have time. I maybe defer that to Dave about being able to implement this before we may have to go remote again. This would push it into December probably.
So Mr. Muse, with that in mind, what's the timeline if this was approved tonight? What are we looking at for turnaround?
Your worship, it would very much depend on Eastlink's availability. As you might imagine, since COVID-19, the demand for this type of service has gone through the roof. They've got existing commitments with new customers trying to implement the same technology. But our experience with other municipalities has been it's approximately 3 weeks to a month worth of planning. And then in the case of the town of Bridgewater, we would probably start with the facilities outside of town hall because they're quite a bit simpler. But I expect it would be 8 to 10 weeks from start to finish.
Thank you. Councilor McDonald?
So if staff were sent home, this is a physical desk phone that they're going to take to their home with them?
No, so when we move to this new system, if they go home, they're taking this, or just if they have a cell phone, they'll have that. And the software that you put on your laptop will enable it to function just like a phone. So you have your headset, your mic, just like Teams.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's your office line, and it works just like as if you were using your desk phone.
So right now with our current system, if I'm plugged into the town network, I can see who's calling me and answer my phone on my laptop.
Right.
But if I'm at home, I lose all that functionality.
You have to be remote in.
It kind of is weird that beside your desk phone is a laptop that can let you answer your desk phone, but when you're away from your desk phone, you can't.
Yeah.
You have a follow-up question?
Please. So while this may not be a big savings alone in changing the phone system, with some of the investments that we've made into these technologies, is there the possibility for some staff to work remotely and then see additional savings, maybe in cleaning, heating, lighting?
Yeah.
A possibility, or is that, we're not even looking at that right now, we're dealing with COVID?
Oh, you mean like long-term?
Right, yeah.
It certainly supports the ability for remote working to occur. That's a much larger conversation, but if spacing becomes an issue, which, it is in some areas, and we do have some employees that do work some at home because of that, this helps facilitate that. It's a more robust system, so we won't have to worry about issues of it not working. Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty here.
It's going back to the budget where this was an unbudgeted item, but it was mentioned that we could lease until the next fiscal year, and then council can deliberate at the next budget to accommodate this. So there's no, I guess, penalties or anything in that lease agreement that do you see any pros or cons to doing?
It would help. You would still have your support, your IT support costs for implementation.
Okay.
So David's staff time, we'd be looking at probably bringing Evan in from police to help as well. But what it would do is allow that money allocated for handsets to be kind of pushed into the next fiscal year.
Okay.
I mean, my report does note that we got that COVID-19 restart
Right,
funding.
yes.
So that's what it's, those, you know, that's the type of project that you would be looking at under that.
Okay.
So you could allocate funding from that.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Thorburn.
Yes, Tim, we're not just talking town hall phones, we're talking police department, we're talking fire department and all the other ones?
No, the police and fire are separate.
Separate?
But we would be looking, well, I don't know about fire, fire might be included, but we'd be looking at public works, wastewater,
yeah.
water. But the police have already moved to Eastlink.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the fire would be part of this as well. So,
Mhm.
do you need a motion?
Yeah, we can get there now. I think we had a couple of questions
Go
first.
ahead.
Deputy Mayor
Just have one more. David, how much time do you spend maintaining the ShoreTel system currently for us compared to what you might spend versus Eastlink?
That's a difficult question to answer. We just recently took on the support function for the ShoreTel
Okay.
over the summer at the request of the CAO. So I don't really have good metrics. I can't say that because we're not very familiar with it. Things that are might seem like a simple fix seem to take a long time.
Okay. And is the how long is the contract with Eastlink? Is it a set time period? Is it annually renewable or?
I believe there's a minimum commitment of 1 year. I'd have to confirm that.
Okay.
Changing your phone system is not something you do without giving it a lot of thought.
Yeah, I know. I'm just thinking with the technology advancements, you don't want to be caught into a 10-year
10-year.
agreement as an example, but okay.
Councillor Cole, did you have a question?
Yes, so the COVID-19 restart funding, that's
Mhm.
money that we have received, but
Mhm.
it's not all earmarked for projects yet, is that correct?
No, so, yeah, we just got it last week maybe, or the week before. We got an email saying it's going to be in your bank account today, and there it was. And then they indicated that the parameters around what you can spend it on will come out shortly. So what I've asked our management team to do is to identify for council things that need to be considered or should be considered as part of the COVID-19 restart piece, right? So we have, when we went remote, for example, time and attendance, it's all paper. And that was quite a process to handle when you're working at home. So a time and attendance software program, you know, things to automate us a bit are things that we're looking at, plexiglass, those types of things that are all, they're winter trail maintenance, increased sidewalk maintenance in the winter, those types of things that, when we bring in that list to council, to say, here's some of the things you may want to consider as part of the COVID-19 restart funding package, and here's the funds you have, and here's how much this stuff it costs, and then you can decide what you want to do with the funding. This one's kind of ahead of the game just because of the time element involved in having it put in place, and some concerns that if we go remote, we're going to have some programming costs and that type of thing that we'd have to deal with.
I feel very strongly if we need to make sure our staff have all the tools possible to work from home, because I think there's a very, very real possibility. I don't want to say it's inevitable because we are doing really well. But I think there's a very real possibility that people are going to have to work from home. And it was remarkable how people worked from home. I was so proud of how our staff and council just quickly picked up and left and moved and worked from home. If you were a member of the public, you would have no idea that that person was not at their desk. And not every municipality can say that. We have lots of municipalities across the province where you went months before you could get a hold of someone because they did not have the ability to forward their phones to their cell phone. So anything we can do to make that transition a little bit easier. So I can't see how the province wouldn't classify this as falling under that restart, as much as it was cart before the horse a little bit with, I don't know how you give a check to someone and say, don't spend it till we tell you what you can spend it on, but maybe they're just allowing us the time to come up with the list. It wouldn't surprise me if the province says, now, what do you want to use it for? So, yeah. I would look for a motion, then we can continue on.
Okay. I would move council for the town of Bridgewater approve the transition of the existing ShoreTel phone system to Eastlink Unified Communications Service with an implementation cost of $30,000. And further, that the procurement of this system be done as an alternate procurement as provided in the town's purchase and tendering policy, section 18E and F.
Thank you. Seconded by Mayor Tanner. And of course, if it comes in below that, then it will come in below that. So if that's the worst case. Any further discussion?
Can we just have confirmation of the contract timeline once it's
Yep.
available? Just
Yep.
out of
I'll let you
curiosity.
know the
Okay.
detail, yeah.
So CAO will get back to us on that.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Question?
Question being called. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Down to business arising and unfinished business is the last item, and this was missed when we did the edits for the committee appointments, so we need to appoint a member and an alternate to the Lunenburg County Accessibility Committee. So I'm looking for someone to make that motion, please, Deputy Mayor Tanner.
I move that council for the town of Bridgewater appoint Councilor McDonald, alternate Councilor Conklin to the Lunenburg County Accessibility Committee effective immediately to October 31st, 2022.
Thank you. Seconded by Councilor Thorburn. Any discussion? Anyone really against that? No? All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. That concludes our, I was going to say our service today. That includes our broadcast. Concludes our council meeting. I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Councilor Frazier, seconded by Councilor Thorburn. We are adjourned. Thank you.